All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to teach you a little bit about what happens here in the office with like restorative processes / conferences. The way we do this is pretty standard, but it changes a little bit depending on the situation, if there's 2 kids, 1 kid, and so forth. This one is actually something that took place. We'll kind of take you through an example that took place on the playground with, I believe it was some 1st graders, where they were playing soccer, and one boy kicked the ball and he missed the goal. Another boy laughed at him, and so then he got upset. So then he punched him, and then he punched him back. And so we dealt with this kind of conflict here in the office. So whenever we have a conflict with kids, what we do is we interview them separately, and we take them through a set of questions that gets at what happened and who did you affect. And so with the kid that actually laughed at the boy for soccer, here's what we did. We took a look at these questions right here, and the first thing we asked is what happened? And then we ask the kid, hey, what were you thinking at the time when you decided to tease him or laugh at him? The third step is the important one, and that's where we start to take a look at it. Hey, who did you affect and how? And that's where we use this little diagram right here, and I'll break it down for you for this particular kid that was doing the teasing. Just understand that we also do the same thing with the kid that did the punching. Once we have the 2 kids, their stories, and they understand how they have affected each other and done a little work, then we actually bring them together and go through the same process again with them both together so that they can hear each other talking about how they affected each other, what they were thinking about, and ultimately working towards a solution. So let's take you through this part right here. How did it affect, or who did I affect and how? So this next part is the hard part for kids many times, because they're starting to look beyond themselves and figure out, like, who did I affect and how? And so there's a lot of coaching that goes along with it, and many times the kids can get the first person. So in this particular case, the boy that did the teasing, he was able to identify that, yes, it was this 1st grade boy. So we'll write in 1st grade boy next to, or the kid's name next to the arrow. And then the next part is really tough for kids. It's like, well, how did you affect them? And it's identifying different emotions and effects and so forth. And so what we do is we add in this little icon, which I'll show you on the next slide. So if the student is struggling with trying to figure out how did it affect the kid, we'll use this scale many times. And what allows us to do is either we can use the pictures with younger kids, or the kids that can read, they can start to take a look and get some ideas. And it's not always necessarily these words. Sometimes they'll say angry, or sometimes they'll say embarrassed and things of that sort. But at least it allows them to start looking at how they are affecting kids. So we write down who was affected and then how. The next one is very difficult for kids to do, and that is look beyond just the specific situation. So this is where the questioning comes in, and we'll show you who else was affected with the kid. So the question we asked the kid was, hey, what do you think the other kids out there might have been thinking? Do you think it might have affected them? You know, when they saw you laughing at the other boy, what do you think the other kids might have been thinking at the time? And so we write down kids first of all, because it might have affected the other kids. And sometimes they'll get it, and sometimes we'll have to help them. So in this particular case, the other boy couldn't quite figure it out. And so we shared with them the following. We said, hey, when those kids saw you teasing them, do you think they maybe were worried that maybe you would tease them later on? I don't know. But we have to think about those things when we're doing things out on the playground. We have to think about how we might affect others. So we continue to help the kids add on to people they might affect. And so in this case, we talk about parents. You know, what if this boy goes home and says, hey, this boy's teasing me on the playground, he was laughing at me, to his parent, that might affect the parent, right? How do you think it might affect the parent? And we ask the kid this, and they're pretty good about this part, because I think they know how their moms and dads feel when their kids get teased. So we talk through how the parents might feel concerned or worried. And I think the kids get it then. I think that's where they start to see how this branches out and how this one little thing they did affects multiple people and how it affects them. So the last step that we do is we go back to those questions again and finish the loop. And we'll do that right now. So by now we've taken them through these first 3 questions. What happened? What were you thinking about at the time? And who was affected and how? And this part will be filled out right here. So then we go back, and since they've done a little bit of learning, and we take a look at, hey, what have you thought about since? So originally you were thinking that it was kind of funny that you missed the goal, but what are you thinking about now, the fact that you laughed at them? And many times by now they kind of get the idea that, wow, I really affected this other kid. And we talk about, well, how can you make things better? Because we would like to get you and this other kid together. And so here's the key part. We take some time, we actually have the kids write an apology letter, because when we get the kids together, we want them to have the words to be able to express it to the other students. With younger kids, we write it in for them, and maybe we even repeat the questions for them, but this is what the apology letter looks like. And we actually have it so the kid has a resource, so when they go in to meet with the other students, they're ready. So this is the standard kind of apology letter, and we help the kids quite a bit. They can draw on a little picture here if they want to their friend or the kid they're trying to remedy the problem with. But basically, it's kind of going through this whole questions they did before. I'm writing because I laughed at you on the playground. When this was happening, I was thinking it was funny. I know that it was wrong to laugh at you. I know this made you sad. I'm sorry for laughing at you. Next time, I won't laugh at you. Pretty basic, but at least they have the words to go about talking about it. So when the kids get together, they both, depending on the situation, if one kid was the harmer and the other kid was just the bystander, well then, or the person that got harmed, well then the apology is read to the kid that was harmed, and we ask the kid, how did it feel, and so forth. But ultimately, the kids at the very end of this thing, our whole goal is this. One, do they understand how they affected other people? Were they able to kind of review back and think, how would I do this differently next time? And then they're able to make amends with the other kid. And on the other side, the boy or girl that was harmed on the other side, they get to express how it affected them and what they need for things to be better. And so at the end of this, many times we'll make a little bit of a plan with the kids. And then finally, we follow up with the parents so they know what took place. So that's what a restorative conference looks like. I'm going to have you guys watch a really, really fast restorative conference. It doesn't go through exactly all these steps, but it can be done relatively quickly and allow kids to take perspective, learn from the mistakes, and make sure that hopefully things don't happen like this again. The last part I wanted to highlight with you is this. When the kids come to make the plan, what we really try to focus in on then is the 4 R's. We start to take a look at right choices, readiness, respect, and responsibility. And so in this particular situation, we talk about, hey, was it respectful when you were laughing at the other boy? Or was that a right choice when you decided to punch him after he laughed at you? We really were focusing on these 4 R's. We talk about, hey, how would we do this next time? How could we do this making right choices and being respectful? And that's where this plan ultimately forms from. And so that's it in one big package. It's a restorative conference where we really focus in on repairing the harm versus just a traditional consequence, and looking at how do we make a plan moving forward following those 4 R's.